Hello, my name is Evelina Silveira with Diversity at Work, and I'm here to talk about how the Trudeau Liberals have made a mockery out of diversity. And this is very concerning for me because I've run a diversity business now for 15 years. And I will tell you one thing, their brand of diversity is not mine. I have spent the last 15 years of my career as a small business person creating training programs to build harmony in the workplace, to create understanding of one another, to build more productive and inclusive workplaces. And I have to say, this Liberal Party, it is doing everything that is against diversity. It's taken something that in itself can be an asset to an organization and to a country and turned it into a big divisive mess. And I'm going to show you how. But before I get into the details, I want to say this. There are a lot of people out there who are not getting awards for being inclusive, who are not getting that recognition. Those are people who are doing the right thing on their own. They don't need legislation. They're the unsilent heroes. They're the people who are just fair, and I see them all the time. Sometimes this whole Trudeau fiasco reminds me often of workplaces that I've heard of or I've seen on my own who do everything right on paper when it comes to workplace diversity and inclusion. They use all of the right words, the right buzzwords, just like Trudeau did yesterday when he was being questioned about his brown face, blackface experiences. And he was manipulating the people there by using oppression language like systemic discrimination, oppression, white privilege, all of those things to make excuses for his behavior. And in fact, what he did was he just insulted another group of people all over again. Basically, he said that people, white people who have money, are racist. Does it ever end? Does the labeling ever end with this government? So what I'm trying to say too is that often the people that walk around thinking that they're holier than thou when it comes to diversity issues and being the most inclusive and sensitive person are often the people who are hypocrites. So just bear that in mind. Because I think there's often a lot of judging that goes on about people who don't use the right words all the time. So I'm going to give you some examples of how diversity has run amok with the Liberal government and why we need to start thinking about diversity from the point of view that I talked about earlier, and that's the one that I promote. And that is about creating understanding, creating open and honest dialogue, and politically incorrect, and dealing with political correctness in the workplace. And to actually get people talking instead of silencing them. Like the Liberals love to silence people. They love to label. And unfortunately, what I see is that is translating into the workplace now more than ever. What happens on the outside, on the micro level with the Canadian government, now becomes acceptable in the workplace. So let's go on to some of these fiascos. The quota hiring. Instead of doing proper vetting, having a vetting process for his candidates, I don't know what the Trudeau government did. They were praised around the globe for having gender parity. Big deal. What does gender parity mean when some of your prized people like Selena Chavez, Chavanez, Cesar Chavanez left, became an independent. Jane Philpott as well, and Jody Robichaud Wilson. What's the point of hiring them if you are not going to listen to them, if you're not going to take feedback from them? What's the point of hiring and bringing on somebody like Lena Alisev? Why did Lena Alisev not get a cabinet position? She was far more qualified than Harjit Singh, the person who's the current defense minister. We only heard from her when she decided to resign and go over to the Conservatives. She would have been a fantastic defense minister, but she was overlooked. So what is it about Trudeau? He doesn't like articulate, smart, bright, independent thinking women. So why all this women's hypocrisy and quota hiring about? And why is it that he allowed people like Kent Eyre and Kang on to be part of this, to be part of his cabinet? Why did he allow that? Didn't he do any background checks on these people? Why do we still not know where Mariam Monsef was born? How is that even possible? I swear I had a job as a volunteer coordinator, and I probably did more checks on my volunteers than these candidates. And why did we bring on people with affiliations to the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organizations when a Google search could easily figure that out? And we see that if you're interested in learning more about that, please, it's worth taking a look at the Quiggin reports, the Quiggin podcasts. Lots of detailed intelligence information there. So this is not just coming out of the air, so you know that. This is information that they chose to negate, and to our detriment. Now let's look at women. Okay, so we have a prime minister who violates women's physical boundaries. He has groped them. And he doesn't do much to the employees, the ministers, the MPs who have been accused of sexual harassment. Not only that, but he says that he's a feminist, yet they bring in C-75, which is the hybridization of a number of laws, which means lower sentencing for pedophiles, rapists, people who commit sexual assault, gang violence, murder, terrorism, all of those wonderful things. Why? Why is it okay to create unsafe spaces for vulnerable groups? That's exactly what he did. He created more danger for children and women as a result of this legislation. Why should we have why should we lower sentences for these people? Why? And then I feel like truly under this government, we have gone backward in women's rights. And that really concerns me. I was one of those people who was out there marching for violence against women in the 80s and in the 90s. And I feel that we were more unsafe now because our prime minister will not call out the misogyny of some cultural practices that are in place. He will not call out barbaric practices. What is progressive about child marriage? What is progressive about female genital mutilation? For a man who says that women have the right to choose whether or not they want to abort their baby, why can't women have the right to decide who and when they're going to get married? Isn't that kind of like on the same line? But why won't he call that out? Because he does not truly defend women's rights. That's why. He truly doesn't care about women and girls. Now, and when we're talking about how religious intolerance, I say that religious intolerance has increased. under the Trudeau government. And, people are always talking about Donald Trump, but they don't see it under their nose with the Trudeau government. And that is very concerning for me. Don't think for a moment that some of these comments that he makes about Christians being the worst kind of people, evangelical Christians being the worst kind of people, and other references to Christianity don't have any effect on people. We see more churches vandalized, more synagogues vandalized. We see a rise in anti-Semitism. And a lot of this is not getting reported because they don't want you to know about it. You have to go into the backlinks. You have to get onto Twitter and see this happening. So I would say that that Canada is now more unsafe for Christians and Jews. How about a prime minister who says that he is pro-LGBT? He brought in legislation about personal pronouns and the rights of transgendered people, but yet he is frequently seen meeting with Islamists. These are individuals who openly, and have been documented and videotaped, that they call for the death of gays, Christians, and Jews, and they're and throwing people off of buildings. This is in front of our noses, and he still does that. Not only is Trudeau brown-faced, black-faced, he is two-faced, and he is creating a dangerous contradiction here. We need to look at the double standards that have been created under this government, where it's okay, for instance, to harass women and say that they're sorry, where it's okay to make anti-Semitic remarks and still have a job, where it's okay to hang out with people who believe in the death of anyone who is not Muslim. Why would you do that? And yet there's no the apologies mean nothing anymore, because it is now part of the liberal culture. And the only way you can destroy a bad culture is by removing the people who create it and starting afresh. And I think that the Liberal Party has moved far, far away from the decent things that it once represented. And hopefully they'll get a chance to rebuild, but not with these individuals here. My name is Evelina Silveira, and I still believe that diversity has its strength, but it has to be managed. And I believe that that there is a lot to be there is a lot to be gained from diversity, and we were gaining from it as well. I believe before these 4 years happened. I think that this division is creating so much disharmony, and it's very, very concerning for me. If you'd like to learn more about what I do, please visit my website, www.diversityatworkcommunications.com. Thank you, and have a good day.